Hi everyone, it's South by Southwest, and we're here to talk about it.
I'm Wesley Faulkner, by the way. I'm the weird one of the group.
He's your MC.
Yeah.
Moderator. I'm Myriam Joire, host of the Mobile Tech Podcast.
I'm Jeffrey Powers from geekazine.com.
And there we go. And we thought, hey, let's podcast. But then we thought, how does that fit in with our normal podcast? And it didn't really.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's do this as a video.
Because I brought the camera.
Because you brought the camera.
Right? I hauled the camera all day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use it.
And we thought that way we can put it on our respective YouTube channels and you guys can all get to know each other, or us all if you don't know each other.
Yeah, so this is kind of an experiment. So if you like this, let us know if you want more.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we can do that. Yeah.
So Wesley, you've
Yes.
got some topics.
Yes, topics.
We're going to talk about all kinds of things South by.
But first, let's talk about what is South by.
You
right?
doing it?
Yeah. So South by Southwest is a festival that started off with three primary subjects: interactive, music, and film. We usually all go just to interactive because that's where all the technology is. This is the 32nd South by. I've been to 12. This is my 12th one. Jeffrey, how many?
6 or 7.
6 or 7. Myriam?
10-ish.
10-ish?
I mean, I took breaks too, so it's over a longer span.
And so it's
We're veterans. That's
yeah,
the
it's been growing every year. It started off with like everything being in one building, having one keynote, and it's grown to having like presidents. This year, a whole bunch of Democratic prospects are coming. We have titans of industry all doing major activations. If you've heard of the giant Westworld activation last year, that was here at South by. This year, there's a Game of Thrones activation that was pretty good.
Bleed for the Throne.
Bleed for the Throne. That's pretty awesome. So, like, a lot of publicity, a lot of movies, a lot of films, a lot of celebrities.
And
that's-
music.
A
Lots
lot
of
of music and comedy.
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 Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the New Negroes.
Yeah, that was a great premiere. It's going to be on Comedy Central end of May, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
You
It
can
was
fact
pretty
check
awesome.
us on that. Just Google it.
Yeah.
So another thing I want to bring up about South by is that, my first kind of like introduction to it was from reading the tech blogs that I eventually wrote for because I'm a tech journalist, like Engadget and stuff. And it was like around the Web 2.0, pre-smartphone, like 2004, 2005, that time frame where there was a lot going on. Like Flickr was a thing, WordPress was a thing, etc. And then it kind of like I put it on my radar. I was like, this is to me it looked like this is a conference or a festival where creative people go that are doing creative work in tech.
Yes.
And I'm really interested in that because I love the intersection of technology and creative work.
Yeah.
And so I was like, one day I want to go. And then I got the opportunity to do that when I was at Engadget, when I would come here to cover the show for more pure technology, even like things like hardware, because there's actually startups here showing, consumer hardware tech. And then there's like med tech and all kinds of stuff. So we want to talk about some of this. And very important, you talked about activations.
Yes.
Twitter was launched here.
Twitter was launched here.
Foursquare was launched here.
Foursquare was launched here.
Others?
The first year I came, it was Meerkat versus Periscope.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the last one that we had a big kind of like platform launch.
Yeah.
And the way in the beginning, like when you're talking about it, was kind of a wild west of the World Wide Web where there were people pushing each other, and the people who were in the web, it was more collaborative than like people fighting it out, trying to win.
Right.
So it was really the cooperation and the conversations in the hall about techniques to make things better, to like engage more users, to make just a genuinely better product. I think Mark Zuckerberg, when he initially launched Facebook, said that he would never have advertising, and like this is the age that we're talking about of what the web was like.
And while there's still a lot of that going on, it has changed radically since then. At least the interactive part. And you have to also understand the context of South by started as a film and a music festival, and interactive was added later. So in that context, Austin is a city very well known for its music scene, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it was kind of like evolving this creative, juice from music and film into what this weird word interactive, which is really interactive arts, right? It's like create what we think of creative today. So that includes, any people who create that thing called content, videos, but also developers, also all kinds of things. And so now
remember GDC used to be here, right?
Yeah, GDC also used to be here. So
Well,
it's really interesting how it's evolved.
There's also the question of can music survive at South by Southwest?
Absolutely.
A couple of years ago,
Yeah.
I came for the whole thing 2 years ago because part of my coverage is music tech, and there's a lot of cool stuff. Analog is turning into digital, and I wanted to start capturing more of that. So I was excited to see the expo hall, and then I found out that they got rid of the expo hall, and I found out that when a company like LinkedIn or LG, which are some of the companies that were here this year, they would buy out a building which would pay the rent for that building for the year.
Yeah.
And so if they could do an activation like that, they would be set as a city, and of course then that hurts the music, but the music's still important. So now. Even though interactive technically ends tomorrow, there are still interactive panels until the end of the week. And same thing with music. There's some music stuff before, and films. It's like a big PBJ.
And today is, by the way, it's Tuesday, March 11th.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, there's just recently, I think they may even started last year, they started fusing panels. And so there used to be an interactive panel, you would have to have an interactive badge to get in. There used to be music panels, so you have to have a music badge to get in. Now they have fusion panels where if you have any badge, you can go see it because the content is a crossover.
Yeah.
I said Tuesday, but it's Monday. Monday, March 11th.
Monday, yes.
So when you say it
yeah.
ends tomorrow, Tuesday, March 12th. So when you watch this, get context. By the way, the year is 2019 in case you're watching this in the future and we're all robots.
Yeah. I am robot.
But you have to say that because evergreen
Buy
content.
my T-shirt.
Evergreen content, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think the thing for me is even in the 10-ish years I've been coming, not counting the breaks, I've seen it change drastically.
Yeah,
and if you talk to anybody who's been for a long time, but people come now, they have a very different experience. In that sense, it kind of reminds me of another thing I do every year, which is Burning Man, how that evolves over time, quite drastically. And so
any festival will evolve.
You talk
time.
to people and they're like, "Oh, South by is not the way it used to be," and like, Burning Man's not the way it used to be.
CES, another good example.
Yeah.
Really quick. I mean, it used to be the convention center, and then we had we had 2008. They had the issues, the recession, and everything shrunk down. And then all of a sudden it exploded. Now there's a CES Northwest, East and South. So same thing with South by Southwest, and of course the hotel explosion of downtown Austin.
More venues because there's more real estate.
Where a lot of people are saying, hey, the weirdness of Austin is going away for the corporate Austin. Now I don't know if that's true or not.
It still feels pretty weird to me.
There is still a little weirdness there.
I think economically it's made a huge impact. You live here.
Yeah.
You're the only one of the three of us who lives in Austin.
I always see it. It's like you said, activations. What's changed so much in terms of the money is the scale of the money because of the type of business. Before activations, like we talked about Westworld, we talked about Game of Thrones, there were a lot of them that were B2C, businesses trying to talk to consumers. This year, I've seen more B2B businesses than I've ever seen at South by. There's SAP, there's Accenture, there's all of these companies. There's ADP also. That are just trying to, even the military government here of companies and VCs, that the presence here is becoming more. How do I say it? It's like, if you want attention and status and notoriety, this is where, instead of launching a Twitter, this is where you launch your design strategy for your new brand for a company. And this is how you try to come out and say that this is what my company stands for, and we're cool, and we're hip, we're at South by.
And in case you're wondering, this is an IBM t-shirt because Wes works at IBM. And so IBM is another example of a company that's B2B.
I think I have that t-shirt.
And related to all of this, I think we need to talk about, so we talked about the economic impact. I mean, it's obviously made a huge difference and changed Austin's landscape and cityscape. And, as you said, some companies are just paying the rent for a whole year at this point. It's pretty crazy. But I also think what's interesting about South by is that from the get-go, this is one of the things I think hasn't changed from what I hear from people who used to go years ago and told me to go and then stopped going themselves, is the networking. I mean, again, I think this fits in the spirit of what Austin is like as a city and this whole music background and music, industry, not industry, but music, a venue-based, city, I guess. Austin is highly venue based. And that I think you see a lot of collaborations and a lot of networking and a lot of biz dev sounds kind of douchey, but tech is douchey these days, so when it fits in, I think. But I think, there's a lot of this kind of like people, getting to know each other and starting to figure out how they want to work together. And I see that more than any of the other conferences, festival, trade shows that I attend for my tech coverage, which is mostly mobile technology.
I would say that a lot of people who come here are super connectors.
Yeah.
So they have a big network, and the people who are part of the network also come to South by. And then when a super connector knows another super connector, then they join their networks.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of serendipity, and there's a lot of forming of goodwill because you have people with you that can vouch for other people, and then your network just grows exponentially for every
I know
second.
my network has grown. I mean, besides the fact that I played Gary Kasparov in chess this year,
Yes.
which was awesome.
Right.
I didn't even know that.
And you beat
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
You
I'll
beat
tell you
him,
that.
didn't you? Didn't you beat him?
Yeah, I beat him. Yeah, sure. And but I as a smaller content producer living in Madison, Wisconsin, I was able to every year. I'm able to, and this is even better than a CES or anything else, because with CES you're at a convention center and you're going from booth to booth to booth. You're getting your interviews and you're done. South by Southwest, this is let's sit down and have a conversation just like this.
Or
one.
let's go to a bar and drink.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that going on. It's not really my thing, but I get it because that's what some people want to do. And we know this in other cultures. Japan is very well known for their business deals happen over drinks. After work. Like
Right.
it's not. And I think that's very valid. And so you see a lot of that, and because that's probably why if you have some preconceived notions about this event, and if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, yeah, I've heard lots of parties and lots of craziness, and that's all true, but that's also true of the music venue type stuff that's always been going on here, and the film industry is pretty crazy too. So
Yeah, and it's a good glutton of smart people. And so when you hear that Gwyneth Paltrow is giving a talk, then you also hear that Amy Webb's giving a small talk. And then you self-select, and the people who are drawn to the just pure celebrity instead of the cerebral conversation, they go and do what they want. And you go into a small room, and you can have Amy Webb tell you the future of what's going to happen, and then afterward have a 20-minute conversation with her.
Yeah.
And you could actually be in a room with Amy Webb and Gwyneth Paltrow,
correct. Yeah,
that's
talking
correct.
to each other.
Yeah.
And that's happened a lot in the last few days. I ran into Leonard Maltin in the hallway. So.
Dan Rather was in the lobby earlier.
And also that also means that obviously there are some people who are celebrities but also are super smart.
Yes.
And so then you get kind of like the weird mix of the fans that are just there to see their celebrity crush, and of people who want to hear the great cerebral conversation that's about to happen.
Yeah,
so it's very,
absolutely.
very cool that way. And so for me, the reason I keep coming back is because I feel like I get an opportunity to meet new people and network, and I am a bit of a mini node of my own. I think we all are.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, I struggle with it because it is, I don't always get quite the same value out of it as clearly other people. And, it's not always I'm not like, I live in San Francisco, and, I'm kind of work for myself, so I'm always working essentially, and I like it that way because I'm passionate about what I do. But, for me, it's really hard to go party. And I have in the past, but it's not really something I'm interested in. So I have to try to find that kind of weird middle ground where, and what I'm learning is that if you go digging though at South by, there's a lot of stuff that happens that is not just going to bars and drinking, and there's actually some networking going on in kind of quiet environments where people really can spend the time to get to know each other, and that's really what's cool about it.
Yeah, it's really easy to get overwhelmed with just trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
The choices are infinite, and the choices that you have that no one talks about are only through access through this network that you build from going to South by and learning who your friends are, who that you click with, and then referring you to, you should go here, you should meet this person. And that's the only really way to do South by, is that you start from one point, and then if you keep going, it'll only get better with that network as long as you keep maintaining.
I'll give a perfect example, and then we'll get back onto our topics here really quick. And then our perfect example was a couple nights ago, all three of us were part of a group that we got onto Facebook, and somebody said, hey, meet at this hotel. And we all went to this hotel, and we saw everybody else there, and we all sat down, and we found out what each other did.
It was a LinkedIn local group. It was a
yeah.
LinkedIn local group.
Oh, okay, so that's what
yeah,
it
that's
was.
what it is. Yeah. Brian Wallace, his group is amazing.
And I ran into him on the Expo floor. I didn't even know he had a booth.
Yeah, and then we talked about, and we met all these people. I didn't know hardly anyone else in that room.
I didn't know anyone other than you.
Yeah, and then we all connected and made sure that we can maintain this connection even after South by.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
And we have nothing necessarily in common, really, other than the fact that we're at South by. A lot of us are kind of nodes, and a lot of us have, I think are kind of well known in the areas that where we do stuff, and sometimes our spheres overlap in this really interesting way. And like now I know that if I want an infographic, I'm probably going to hit up Brian.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was kind of the guy.
Yeah.
So now I do. And now I don't think I need one, but I might know someone who needs one. And then I do the intro, and then we're, and that all happened because Wesley said, come to the LinkedIn thing at South by Southwest 2019.
Yeah.
Just for the record. And that's exactly what we're talking about. This kind of serendipity. And, I've also learned that, as a journalist, when I used to attend it, I had to, really schedule my time like I do at every event and plan, meetings and briefings and see stuff and create the content. But I find that now that I attend it primarily to judge the South by Southwest pitch, which is a startup competition that happens here, I actually, can kind of go with the flow. I can just go like, okay, I'm going to let things happen as they happen and not necessarily have a goal. Yeah. And sometimes somebody says, oh, you should go to this talk, and then I go to this talk. And, but I try to not have an agenda as much as possible, just kind of like ebb and flow and kind of meet people. And some years is good and some years is not so good. But it's also a thing about South by, I think if you do come here, do it multiple years. It's kind of a long tail game, really. Yeah. You don't really get too much, I think, out of, you get quite a bit out of going 1 year. I think you can. Yeah. But I think that it's really more about doing it multiple times and kind of like letting it simmer. And
it reminds me of the first time I tried a skateboard. Like, it was rockety. It was like, I could tell it was going to be fun. I was really scared, felt uncomfortable. And then after like doing it several times, then a lot of that anxiety kind of goes away. And then you can just stay on the track and then enjoy the ride. And it takes some time. You have to do it a few times. And then you really understand the groove of, oh, I need to go over here. I understand that there are lounges. I need food. I know where to go. I need something to drink. I need to relax. I need to get away from everybody. Look, we found this room because of previous knowledge.
And it's clearly part of South by.
Yeah, and
I think that's a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about.
So what are the things that stood out for you? You made a list.
Yes.
Because you're very organized.
I have it here. The first thing is,
I think we should really talk about the elephant in the room. Well, elephant in the South by, and that's the transport.
Yes,
yeah, transportation.
I was going to talk about there's been transportation kind of controversies at South by many years. Yeah. There's a year that it rained constantly and the shuttles were useless. There was the time where the city of Austin basically kicked out Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, and that made things rough.
Yeah, and then and now they're experimenting with pedestrian only ways here this year. And this is the first year that we have all of the scooters and dockless bikes.
Yeah.
And that made things interesting. One, try not to get hit, and two, try not to hit people.
Yeah. And three, having 5 companies compete for one another, and I've got some good anecdotes to share on that one.
Yeah.
Because so again, I don't think we can spend too much time on the background behind it, e-scooters, but give you a quick synopsis how it all started. You probably have them in your city now, and you probably maybe use them, maybe you don't use them, maybe you like them, maybe you don't. There's all kinds of ways to feel about the e-scooters. The reality is this, and this is my opinion, you don't have to agree, but I'm going to share what my thoughts are as somebody who does cover tech. I think that they're an extremely viable means of last mile transportation. And what I mean by that is if you have to travel 4 blocks in a city rapidly, and it's not, the weather permits it, like Austin is a perfect case, the weather is generally always nice, San Francisco is a perfect case, the weather is generally always nice. It might rain, but these things are water resistant anyway. So, it's a great way to do that, and it's cheap. And there's no denying that. Now there's all kinds of baggage that comes with that. The baggage being that Ideally, they should be ridden only on the streets. Ideally, they should be ridden if you care for your health and safety with a helmet. Because if you, like anything else, if you fall on your head, you're gonna hurt yourself. You could hurt yourself pretty badly. It doesn't have to take much.
Yep.
They don't provide helmets. And then the other thing is, don't ride on the sidewalks, which cyclists do too. So there's not just a problem about the scooters.
Yeah.
But the biggest one I think that's been very controversial, at least when they did it in San Francisco, was that they didn't consult the city or anyone. They just did it and basically did a very startup San Francisco, Silicon Valley thing of disrupt, aka, quote unquote, which is basically means don't ask permission, ask forgiveness. And they dumped these scooters on the city. And what happened really rapidly is that people use them, love them because it is really a great way of last mile transportation. And people who didn't use them hated them because they got in their way or they felt that it was unsafe or whatever. But the biggest problem, and it's the same problem we're seeing here, is that they end up in getting in your way when they're not in use. So they're like parked, basically dropped off in areas that are kind of in the way, and it's very chaotic.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's really hard to deal with. And for cities, I think it's not very sustainable. We've seen what happens in China. You can Google this. In China, they've had dockless bicycles for a long time, electric and non-electric. And there's entire city parks that were normal parks where people used to walk their dogs and chill out that are completely covered and unusable because they're graveyards of bikes. Yep. Because people just abandon them, and then there's a pile and you can't get to the bikes at the bottom, and then they get just abandoned. They get taken out of circulation on the app, and that's it. And those companies don't seem to care about the impact. Now in the US, we probably have a bit more regulation around that, but
yeah, at South by Southwest there were a lot of rules. Like for instance, there's 6th Street where they go basically go to the party. They block it off. And a regular week they block it off 2 days a week, but this week they're going to block it off starting at 5 o'clock until bar time. But you can't ride bikes, you can't ride scooters, you can't ride skateboards, you can't do anything. You got to walk your stuff across the street, down the street, whatever. But the other thing is they have the Wranglers. They have the Lyft is one of the scooters. Lyft they have to manage their own. They have to know exactly where all of them are, and they must know it because I'm staying at a hotel 5 miles away, and there was a scooter sitting underneath a tree, and they finally grabbed that one.
Yeah, of course.
So
they know.
So they're wrangling that, but the reality is, at the end of this conference, those scooters will never be ridden again. Because of the lifespan of a scooter.
How long do they last for?
23 days on average. That was something you told us.
Yes.
Also, one thing that is the magic of South by, I've had a couple of problems with these scooters, and most of it has to do with network congestion.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people on cell phones here.
Yeah. Data is pretty bad right now.
I've had problems unlocking. I have problems with relocking and where the clock is running, and I can't turn it off.
Absolutely.
And that is something that only something like a big event of people with everyone's smartphones that you would run into here.
So it's a great stress test. And you mentioned Lyft, and I would like to mention the other 4 companies. So everybody is in, I think there's only 5. So there's Lyft, there's Jump, which is Uber, there is Spin, there is Bird, and there is Lime. Yeah. And Lime and Bird are the ones that started it in San Francisco. And then I don't know where Spin came from.
There's also Skip.
Oh, there's Skip. I haven't seen those.
I downloaded every one that I was told that was going to be here in Austin. So we had Uber, Lyft. There's Curve apparently. Skip, Jump, Bird, Lime.
And Jump is Uber.
And Spin.
So you can use Uber app for Jump.
Yeah.
But my point is that basically, it's the first time I've ever, and I travel a lot internationally all the time. So I see the scooters at various levels of deployment ever since this San Francisco experiment. Because right now they're banned in San Francisco. They're not there right now because they're trying to work it out with the city. Because the city said, look, all you do is work it out with us. We're giving you permits. But now we're just going to impound them all and screw you. And I think it's reasonable because they just didn't do it right. And they didn't very much, Silicon Valley style. But in other cities, they got away with it. In other cities, they were smart and they worked it out with the cities. And so they're in various levels of deployments in various places, but you never really see more than Bird and Lime. And then now, I think, honestly, for me, I can't speak, I'm not an authority on this, but I might be correct that this is the first time that we've seen the Jump ones, which are Uber, and the Lyft ones ever in the entire history of the universe. I could be wrong.
I've seen Jump ones maybe a few weeks back, but Lyft I've never seen.
Yeah, it's brand new.
Yeah, those two came they said what I read before we got here is they came for South by Southwest.
And it's a great stress test, right? Especially with all the networking issues. And then the other thing too is, I'll give you an example how it's kind of interesting. So, I immediately, the only times I've only tried 3 of them. Lyft, because I use Lyft all the time, and I'm not a big fan of Uber, so I have the app already, so friction was 0, right? I just start the app and there I am. They've got my credit card info and everything. So that was the first one I did. Then I did Uber just because, again, I have the app, 0 friction. And Uber was advertising a 0 to get started. You only pay for the minute, not for the actual initial rental.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, okay, I save $1, so let's try that, even though I don't like Uber as a company very much. So I did that. And then I was like, okay, let's maybe support these smaller ones, right? And I'd say, okay, like I've done Lime and I've done Bird in San Francisco when they were still around. So let's try the one that I've never heard of, Spin. And also they really kind of enticed me. They gave me a card, $5 free ride.
Nice.
Or free credit. So guess what I did? I downloaded the app. I was incentivized by the $5 for free. I put in my code and I got my $5, and then I went to unlock a Spin scooter, and then it all fell apart. And I'll tell you why. No, it wasn't a technical problem. It was a marketing problem. And I tweeted at them, but I haven't heard back. But here's what happened. I had to enter a credit card. Fine, I can understand that. The things are worth money. They want to be able to cover their expenses of maybe replacing one if I steal it. I get it. So I put in my credit card. At that point, I'm like, okay, am I good to go? No, I had to spend $5 on my credit card.
What?
I had to refill the account with
$5
minimum. Yeah, it's a charge-based system.
Wow.
And so then, the charge-based system per se, I don't have a big issue with, but I'm just pointing out that I am sitting on $5 of free rides that I cannot use unless I spend $5 on my own card first. And then at that point, I have $10 of credit on my last day at South by, which I know I'll never use, right? So guess what I did? I used Lyft and Uber because they're frictionless. The app is already there. I don't have to refill. I don't have to do anything. And you just wasted your $5 on my thing, and you never got any money from me. And screw you.
This is like Xbox. Remember when they had the point system, and it wouldn't map directly to the money system, and so you'd always have like a few cents or like 30 cents left over because you can use it to spend, and so they try to incentivize you saying, well, I already have a balance, so I'm going to go keep using it.
It's like your Payless cards right now. They're going to be worthless tomorrow.
I'm actually really honestly disappointed they didn't reply to my tweet, considering my Twitter's.
And especially since you're at South by, where they're trying to get the attention of this is a viable model.
I said screw you because you failed. And I think as somebody who does a lot of marketing and PR and kind of like brand building as a consultant myself outside of my journalism work, I think this is completely why people have the Lyft and Uber app on their phones already. Like you are completely shooting yourself in the foot, throwing this out. You throwed me out the window as a customer. I'll never use it again. Period.
I think the other companies, maybe I'd have to read the terms of service, but to be able to say, okay, after 30 days, if you have any credit left, we'd give it back to you, type thing. That might be.
You would think so.
But I don't know.
I think the $5 offer to get started was very generous and very interesting. And I understand you're probably losing money on that, but forcing me to spend $5 of my own money to get $5 of your money on top of that, all the friction of entering my credit card and blah blah blah. No, forget it. You're done. At that point, you lost me. Forget it. It's not good.
Yeah, agreed.
So that was my experience.
I want to before we move on from this subject, I want to make sure that I point out that one thing that is a negative with all the scooters here is a popular transportation method, especially for getting around crowds, have been pedicabs.
Yeah.
I've seen them just sitting around. I've seen one or two actually have fares, but most of them are just sitting around, not carrying anyone.
Rainy Street was probably the best spot to get a pedicab out of there, and it looked like they were doing okay. But you're absolutely right. There was a lot less pedicabs, and I heard that there was a reason why.
There's a warehouse fire.
There was a warehouse fire that affected 150 pedicabs. But all that aside, they did have a good force out there. And I think they stayed towards the Rainy Street area and the backside of the convention center. They weren't in the normal spots otherwise.
And I'm guessing that pedestrian only zone only hurt, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't, since they can't traverse through there, and there's a lot of people there, and they couldn't pick up.
Plus, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that Lyft and Uber and Bird decided to buy those areas where the pedicabs basically set and ready to go, so they could put their scooters.
But you know what's
there.
interesting? A few years ago, Lyft had, or no, it was Uber.
Uber,
had pedicabs on their app.
you could choose it
for
yeah.
South by.
Yeah.
So like, what I'm asking, I'm a huge supporter of. I love cycling, bicycles. Like, I want to support cycling in cities. I think it's done wrong in many places, especially San Francisco. But that being said, I support the pedicab and the people who do it and the whole industry. But I don't. My question to you is, to the pedicab world, is why don't you have an app? A, and B, like, why don't you like? I know it's hard to say this because these companies are massive, but like, why don't you like organize around this to kind of like, get a slice of the pie? Also, market yourself. Like, I'm sorry, but the little e-scooters are a completely different proposition. It's much different of an experience. It's, first of all, one person at a time. It's, to me, very fast and very good for short distances. I see the pedicab more as like a slightly longer distance thing when you're with another person or 2 or 3 people. So I think that there is a market for the pedicab that is not really being marketed, as it were.
Yeah.
And I don't know
it's
how
more
you
a
fix
personal
that.
experience too. I mean, you have music and
Yeah,
stuff.
you have music, you have a conversation.
Yeah.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well,
Well,
it's superheroes.
what you're saying is also a problem with the general cab companies in every single city.
I mean, many cities have apps now.
Yeah, they're starting and they have really okay apps, and then like in Madison we have 3 different cab companies, and I think one of them doesn't have an app to their name, and the other ones, they have okay ones, and so when it comes to pedicabs, that makes it even tougher, especially because there are some pedicabs that are running on their own. They're not affiliated with a big group. Right. They have their own bike, their own system. So, like we saw a couple of years ago, the karaoke pedicab.
Oh, yep, that was pretty cool.
So, and he came from New York, one pedicab.
Yeah.
And so it was his. If he took credit cards, that was on him.
Yeah, but I think I agree on that, and I think that hailing a pedicab without an app should absolutely be a viable option, and we should all do it. I'm not suggesting that the app is necessary. I'm just saying, like, add some variety to the way people do it, and more importantly, I think the problem with credit card is solved by Square. Everybody can take Square, and it's not. There are issues with that. I know some people are going to say, "Oh, it costs me more than." But look, the reality is, like, in a business like this today, you pretty much have to take Square. I'm actually flabbergasted, and I don't understand this, at how many merchants in every city I go to still don't use either Square or one of the alternatives that give me as a purchaser the option to pay cash, credit card by swipe, credit card by chip, credit card by NFC by tap, and phone by tap. Like, this should be universal by now. It's 2019. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, part of that would be on the credit card, because the credit card does charge for
the transactions.
Yeah, but
it's better than nothing, though.
But I thought Square was really aggressive on that.
Well, Square is aggressive on that,
but there are also competitors too,
Yeah.
from own local banks and even credit unions that come with their own swipers or whatever. So I mean,
my final thought on the scooters, really quick, is having that 2-wheel scooter idea is going across urban area is a great idea, but the roads need to be in a perfect condition.
That's right.
The scooter wheels need to be larger.
Yeah.
They need to have trike scooters. I think if this is
more
all
stability would be great.
More stability, self-propelled needs to have that in there. There is, and this is not a promotion, although we have a friend that's working for this company. There's a group out there called YourBikerGang.com.
Yeah.
They have scooters that actually have bigger, wider wheels, so you could. It was kind of like the tours, like the Segways tours and stuff like that. So you could go and spend with a group, have a couple hours of fun, something like that. If they had that in the city, they'd be safer to ride. And there's got to be somebody out there or somewhere that they can hand out helmets that you can also use from place A to place B.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of giveaways. Like, I saw people giving away sunglasses. They should really just give away helmets.
Helmets,
Yeah.
Something.
So the next subject is, unless you have anything else,
Nope.
is the focus of South by, they do some specialized tracks. Every year it changes. Last year I think it was cryptocurrency. This year was the cannabis business. So the business of cannabis and legal cannabis. They're trying to get ahead of any legalization nationwide of cannabis and opening it up to people actually being able to use major banks and to invest and to make sure and to start marketing nationwide what their products are. Did any of you see any people?
First of all, there's three parts to this.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about the blockchain side of it, but there's three parts to the cannabis business. First part is the actual smoking of marijuana, getting high and all that stuff. Second part is the CBD oil that helps with your health if you have a problem. I have Bell's palsy, for example, and they say CBD oil helps with that, and I agree with that. And I have used it. I'll admit that easily. And then the third one is hemp production.
Yep.
To be
part
able
of the
to
Farm
make,
Bill, right?
Yeah, to make clothes, to make food, to make all this stuff. So those three areas were the three areas that are discussed.
Yeah. And we ran into someone yesterday carrying a bong and arthritic dog.
And pulling an arthritic dog in a radio flyer cart.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, they came in from San Francisco area, and they are trying to hawk their startup in terms of doing a chain of custody from the grow yard to the counter. They're selling it because a lot of the expense goes to making sure that the weight of a package when it leaves is the same weight of when it arrives, that no one's skimming off the top. So there's a lot of regulations around it, and it gets really expensive if you have to go through all the rigmarole. And it's using combination of blockchain and combination of cannabis. This was just pretty interesting.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. I mean, I know nothing about the cannabis business, so I don't really have much to say other than, it's really interesting to see how, as it's gotten legalized in various states, it's evolving. I'm a big proponent of legalizing recreational drugs. So I'm on board. I want to see that these businesses succeed and find ways to, thrive. Right. And so if blockchain is, I talked about this. I do a lot of speaking engagement. I talked at a conference in Croatia about a year ago about what are the 5 big future trends in technology that are going to change the world, and one of them is to me is blockchain. And it's not like Bitcoin. It's not like when people think blockchain, they think cryptocurrencies, and they think like dark web or whatever, and all that weird stuff. No, I mean, blockchain is an extremely powerful mathematical way of keeping track of things. Mm-hmm. And that can be used for money, but it can be used for like in this case, chain of production. Yeah. It can be used for titles for homes and ownership of copyrighted material. What if when everything that I created as a content creator was automatically given a unique blockchain entry, and then it can be traced back to me, and I can, if you want, people can remix it and do whatever else and use it, and if I want to get paid for that, I can, because I can keep track of it on the blockchain. But if I don't want to get paid, I don't want to get paid, and it's still in the blockchain, and it still can be attributed to me. That's the kind of stuff that really turns me on about blockchain.
The podcast group, podcasters, live streamers, videocasters, they are very big in trying to figure out how can we take this to the next level for podcasting. And there's many different ways to do it, because it's really just peer-to-peer networking with encryption attached to it. So you could easily make a network for that. So that was one of the conversations in the new media space that they were discussing. So yeah, it's definitely more than just here's money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, and we can just wrap this up, because the cannabis is something that I didn't go to any sessions on. Just with talking with the people here, I think it is almost 100%, at least at this conference, destigmatized.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Not one person blinked, not one person had a problem with it.
And that's what's cool about it.
Yeah, and I think if there are controversial subjects that are able to have a whole track and not one person complain about it, I think that shows a sign of something of the times, which is pretty cool.
I think actually now that you said that, it makes me really think this is the way that you can get things across, because something else happened this year at South by Southwest that I've been really putting some thought into, and that is the interview. One of the keynotes was with Kathy Griffith. Griffin, yeah.
That's true.
As you remember, she tried something. Of course, she's a comedian, and comedians always have to go outside the box, or push the box, push the limits. And she had that Trump head, bloody Trump head, which caused a lot of controversy. So she took some time off, and then now she was on stage for South by Southwest. I watched it. It was a really, really great interview between her and Kara Swisher. And it was amazing. But she's not going to be back on CNN for the New Year's Eve party by any means. But I have a feeling that she's now back into a spot where she can continue on with her career. So, and I've seen this, the Winklevoss twins. I mean, I think
it does feel like a PR rehab coming to South by, right? Yeah. This is the Dancing of the Stars version of
PR rehab.
Dancing of the Stars. I like that.
Come to South by if you want to, abolish your sins.
That being said, if I can jump off of that really quickly,
I'm done.
I think all of us, we've been together, we've done a lot of things, and we've done a lot of things on our own, and we've had our own special moments of South by. You mentioned Kasparov. Can you talk more about what that experience was like?
Well, just so you guys know, basically what happened was a friend of mine they had a call to have 10 chess players play Garry Kasparov. He was here for Avast to talk about security and stuff like that. And so they had 10 people sign up, and then he was going to play all 10 people at the same time. I was going there with a camera and just going to get footage of the whole event. And at that point, the 10th person never showed up. Actually, 2 people didn't show up, and they filled one of the spots. And they said, "Can you do it?" And it's like, yeah, last time I played chess was like college or something like that. But yeah, so I got in front of a board and lost in about 6 or 7 moves. But if I would have prepared, I really think I would have done better.
And you didn't walk away empty-handed.
No, got a signed chessboard from that, and then a whole bunch of swag from that, and then the next activation that was happening at the Twitter house, and that was Fear the Walking Dead. So I got a really cool Fear the Walking Dead hat. So.
Awesome. And one of my experiences is that this is my 12th South by. I said that before, but this was the first South by that I was invited to a special roundtable discussion. And it was with the VP of Postmates. It was me, and there were several other people in the room. There was 3 people from Google. There were 2 from Facebook. One from Facebook. There was 2 of us from IBM, and someone from ADP, and a lot of mayors. Some from California, some from the Netherlands and overseas. All talking about how do we support the people who are in the gig economy? How do we help pay for their health care, but still keep them as contractors and not put them as employees, because the company loves the benefits of having contractors, but they also care about the people, but they don't want to treat them as an employee because that implies a whole bunch of other risks and business problems and complicates their business model. And so that discussion was just really engaging, really enriching, and really personal. I think there were like 15 of us in the room, and it was really casual.
Was it like a brain trust type thing?
The weirdest thing is none of us knew each other in that room.
Okay.
And so all of our perspectives, whoever curated this roundtable did a really good job. Even people from the same company had different opinions and different ways of looking at it. Cool. And they got a diverse set of opinions about how to approach this problem. It's my first year doing it. They've probably done it for a while, but I'm not sure how I got on the list for the invite only. But it was a very unique experience that I would say really enriched my time, because not only did I get to participate, but I got to hear all of these ideas about a problem that I've never felt that I could participate in that could actually affect change. Postmates is going to IPO. they're hearing all of this. They're considering how the industry, they're considering how their users view them as a company. And so this is something that definitely could eventually come back and push other industries to make the same changes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Myriam?
Well, for me, what was one of the more delightful experiences, so, as I said earlier briefly, my podcast is about mobile technology. That's basically what I cover as a journalist: phones, laptops, anything that's around that, headphones, speakers, things that are portable and mobile and that you use, that are gadgets, that are technology that let you work and play anywhere you want. And so because of that, I've been very connected to the cell phone manufacturers. And the PR person for HMD Global, the company who makes the current set of Nokia phones, is also the PR representative for ADP. Completely different, right?
Yeah.
And so because I saw him at Mobile Congress, which is a big trade show about cell phones that just happened a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about, some phone of some kind, and he said, "Hey, are you by any chance going to South by Southwest? Because people know that I go." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, I'm going for the first time, or maybe the second time, I can't remember. And I'm representing another client, ADP." And I'm like, "Whoa, what?" And he says, there's this one person I want you to meet who works at ADP and is going to speak, and we're kind of like pitching this to the media. And he says, "I'm not pitching you because I know it's not in your alley, but I want you to come and meet her because she's an incredible person." And I was like, "Sure, I'll come." So I went to the talk and I met Martha Bird, who works at ADP, who was absolutely an incredible person. And we totally hit it off. He introduced me afterwards. And so much so that yesterday, the day after her talk, we hung out for like a couple of hours and got to know each other and talked about technology. She's an anthropologist for ADP, and she basically looks at all that anonymized big data and tries to figure out like how people move in the workspace, because they actually have access to that data, right? And how people leave, why people leave jobs, and why people come to jobs, and how all this happens, and the analytics around that and the data. And it was fascinating. And so that was my delightful moment. I met somebody. Not only did I add somebody to my network, but I actually spent some quality time with them and talking about things that I normally don't deal with. And we talked about, she heard the stuff that she doesn't normally deal with. And we had this really great conversation. And it was completely randomly facilitated by, this wonderful PR person for Nokia, Ben. Hey, and
wow,
it's like,
that's awesome.
I'm like, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
And I've gone to a few sessions. I know you all have gone to a few sessions. Every year there's a general quality, whether the speaker's good enough, whether that the line is too long and you don't actually get to go.
That is a problem.
I would say or like even finding some of these things, because they're spread out around the city, that's sometimes a problem. So the logistics around the panels, my personal experience is that I've gone every session that I wanted to go to, I was able to get in. I didn't have any problems. And I think that's because I choose my sessions, because I don't go to the Olivia Wilde, the Trevor Noah. I don't go to those things. I only go for the ones that are not going to be simulcast or recorded and playback later. But what did you guys feel? Did you feel that it was better, worse, same?
Well, I don't do the sessions as much as you do, because my focus is getting the newness, the underdogs, the new ideas. So the Expo Center is my jam, I guess you could call it. How
was your jam?
As well as other types of one-on-one sessions. I looked at a VR headset in a coffee shop, for example.
Right.
But the Expo Center
was that the Lucy one?
Yeah,
me too. I got that.
Oh, you saw that? Yeah.
Great.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
kudos to Lucy.
Yeah, and basically, the expo's been changing so much, because once again, like I said, with the music being this, what do we do with it? I think that's the same thing with the expo. Like for instance, yesterday the expo was open up. Let's say we're right in basically a 2-room hall, so it can be split into 2 and then opened into 1. And yesterday it was like half of it was closed, and then today all of a sudden there was a whole bunch of new booths, and maybe tomorrow there'll be even more booths, and then they'll close it again, and then towards the end of the week there'll be the gaming part of South by Southwest will take over that whole area where the music used to be. So but they had music in there as well as tech, as well as other things, and I don't know if they were trying to just make it a general, okay, this is an expo.
Yeah.
If you want to buy a booth,
Yeah.
or whatnot. They had a lot of pavilions there. The French pavilion.
All the countries.
All the countries.
That seemed bigger this year.
Yeah.
Was that just me, or?
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I worked. I had an opportunity to go to South Korea this last year to work with some of the startups and actually judge some of the startups. And one of the products that I picked as the winner, called Pivo, which is a little phone device that you can use to self-track if you're doing like a presentation or something like that, or anything like that. They were there under an umbrella of South Korea, a company, a government company that brings those companies to the United States and other places, other events, so they can get their name across. So I saw a lot more of that and a lot less of the South by Southwest type booths that we would normally see.
You bring up something really interesting too. I don't really do that many sessions. I kind of like, if somebody tells me like you should go see this is going to be worth it, I go.
Right.
It brings up another thing. If you're watching and you're like, oh, this is really fascinating, I think I want to go to South by next year, and then you look at the badge prices, which by the way go on sale immediately after the
They're on
show,
sale
and
now, right?
You should probably buy it now because
Yeah.
it goes up after that. But you're going to probably say, oh no, I can't do that. And I would say actually you can do South by Southwest without a badge. I'm not wearing mine; it's over there. But like you can, like there is enough going on that doesn't require a badge, and definitely for the networking you don't really need a badge. It's only if you want to go to sessions and the show floor that you need a badge.
Some official parties.
Some official parties. But my point is, I'm not discouraging you from getting a badge. You should if you want, if you can. But there's way more to South by than the badge. Yeah. And that's actually not true of many places that I go to. Like a lot of the conferences and trade shows and festivals I attend, you pretty much need a badge because otherwise you're not getting part of the action. But here, I would say a good half of what's or more that's going on is outside of the actual purview of the badge.
If you really want to get in, there are day passes.
Yeah.
And they don't cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah. And the thing is also, some official events also don't require a badge.
They're free.
Like we did the Game of Thrones, like Bleed for the Throne, and we didn't need a badge for that.
No, we did not.
They didn't ask for
I don't
that.
know, did the Facebook or Google sessions?
No, I think those, you mean the rooms or the buildings or the activations?
Yeah, like
I didn't go to any of those.
Yeah.
But like you went to another big activation, was it God's Omens or Omens?
Well, I was just at I can't think of it. The Amazon's coming out with a new
the
new
David
show.
Tennant Amazon
Good
Prime.
Omens, that's it.
Good
Yeah.
Omens.
Good Omens.
Yeah.
And I saw that there was a badge line and there was a non-badge line. And that was a huge activation, South by sanction, and they're still letting people in without badges.
Yeah, there was one other. I won't talk about the brand, but we went to another. I guess we did need a badge for that one. In this building, the Italian place in this building. But that. Now this is another thing for if you work with a company that is big with South by Southwest, that's a good reason to go.
Yeah.
Because they'll have a lot of tracks and they'll get you in even.
A lot of
to their
customer
stuff.
lounges for these large brands and to bring their customers in.
Yeah.
And like all conferences and trade shows and festivals, if you're media, you can get in for free, but obviously you have to work. And South by has some pretty specific requirements. Obviously, you need a certain amount of traffic on your publication, but more importantly, they want you to prove that you've covered the show by showing them what you publish after the fact. They're one of the few that requires this. But so it's probably a little harder to get in as media than other shows, but it's possible. And then,
Well, actually, I saw CES. CES is kind of following that same thing. What's your website like and stuff like that. If I can get in, you can get in.
there you go, exactly.
And the reason why I am, and what's is one of the tracks is that you could also volunteer.
Right.
So South by has an EDU where it's 3 days before the big South by starts, and you can volunteer for that event and then use the credits to come to the South by as a whole.
And if you're a speaker,
Yeah.
you can get in as well. So
Yeah.
you can apply. You can
Yeah.
do it right now. On their website, they're taking, they're probably going to take applications very soon for speakers.
Yeah, it's called the panel picker, and it'll happen in about 60 to 90 days from
And
now.
then the other option is, there's all kinds of other gigs. Like, I'm a judge on the South by Southwest pitch, so that's how I get my badge every year. And you can, I would look into other things, but ultimately you don't have to have one, and it's definitely worth checking out.
Oh,
Yeah.
and volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just said
Yeah,
that.
Oh, you
and
did
I'm
say
on
that.
the advisory board, which means I'm one of the groups that actually goes through all the panels that are submitted and help pick the ones that get pushed over to the next round to get invited to speak.
So that's why mine didn't get picked.
As a judge, I recuse myself from anything that is personally that I have.
You have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They're very strict about that. So it's really great way of making sure that it's accessible. They also have when they do spotlights, for instance, like the cannabis business, you can solicit saying, "Hey, I'm part of this," and they can invite you to speak even through outside the invite, and the process. Because they're trying to build up and really highlight these type of efforts. I remember when they had Blacks in Tech, and so they had another section of even people who submitted panels, got refused. They reached back out to them and said, hey, we're opening up a whole section just so to make sure that we can invite more people to highlight this effort that we're trying to make sure that people are supported.
They used to be very closed on that, and it definitely opened. I've noticed it open up. In fact, this year, one of our friends, Esprit,
Yeah.
she was doing the podcaster meetup, and then they contacted her and they said, "We've got this other session. They backed out. You want to be part of it?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes." So it's there's still opportunity,
Yeah.
even if you don't get that initial.
One thing I have to say, being part of the advisory board and also going to South by for this many years, everyone gets a survey and they really take feedback. And every year they're trying to get better and better. There might be some new things they try, but they iterate. And if for some reason that you try to get here and you can't, email South by. They listen.
Yeah.
They care.
And then the other thing that's great if you come, whether you get a badge or not, if you come, there's all kinds of events that cater to minorities, and this is great. As of myself, I'm a woman in tech. I'm queer, and there's tons of stuff I could do here that is kind of like in that sphere, and it's really nice to have that. And the organization really supports it too, the
Yep.
diversity, which is really, really great. It's not the case for a lot of trade shows and conferences, especially in tech. And it's really nice to see. I really think South by is really very good at spearheading that.
Actually, as a person who picks panels, one of the criteria that we use is how diverse is the panel
Right.
to judge. And the diversity is on many spectrums. Sometimes it's gender. Sometimes it is location. Like if you are foreign, like not from the U.S., I shouldn't say foreign. If you're not here domestically, there are so many facets. So if you also feel like you don't have something strong enough to pitch from a speaker gig, pal up with someone else. And if you can just find a diverse group, then you have a greater chance
Yeah,
of
and
getting it
there's
submitted.
tons of groups out there, not just in South by Southwest land, but on Facebook, on Slack, on Reddit. You just go out there and say, hey, I'm looking to put this together. Is there anybody else that has a similar interest on that? And you're going to find people.
Yeah, and there's meetup groups, right?
Yeah.
So, like you talk about Esprit, she's a podcaster. You can suggest that there be a podcaster meetup. You could do like a furry meetup if that's what you're into. You could do.
Wait a minute, how'd that? What?
you could do like find your niche if you think that you can get enough people.
Furries for cannabis.
Yeah, fairies for cannabis.
On scooters.
Yeah, if you are really passionate about something, and if you're watching this, you probably are.
Especially at this long. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've
Set it for
watched
a
this
meetup.
far,
Yeah.
you're doing really well.
The ad starts now.
Speaking of which, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, we should probably wrap that up.
Was there any other subjects that we missed?
The parties. We didn't really talk about parties.
The
There's lots of parties.
parties, they drink, they get food, network.
Hot and
If you
cold
can-
running alcohol.
If you can speak and it's not too loud, you can probably network.
Yes.
You get some special dinners. You have where you can really network with the high
Yeah,
ups.
we should give a shout out to the Media Lounge,
Yes.
which is
Mercedes Media Lounge.
Yeah, the
yes.
Mercedes Media Lounge. Also, first year Mercedes has had a media lounge. It was good. It was great. I hope they come back. They had an off-site location that was where you had special speakers. I saw Amy Webb. We talked for like 30 minutes. Met her husband. It was great. They have test driving their concept car that's not even available yet. So I just wanted to make sure to give them a shout out because it's run by some good friends of ours, Brian Solis and Stephanie Agresta. So they always do it, and they always do it up, and they do it well. So
And we'll talk about the regular media because that's how our press passes get taken. That's Carnegie Mellon University that hosted that this year.
There you go.
And the lounge was awesome, especially because I got to also spend a couple days on the EDU side of South by Southwest and got some great content there. So the shout out to them too.
yeah.
And that's a wrap.
That's right. I'm Wesley Faulkner. You can find me on Twitter, Wesley83.
And you work for IBM.
And I work for IBM. I work in dev advocacy. So, like, if you're a dev and you're interested in IBM technology, you can reach out to me. I prefer Twitter. You can also reach out on LinkedIn. Send me a message if you have any problems, or if you're just curious, you want to learn more about me and the company. Just say hi.
And I'm Myriam Joire, at Tankgirl on Twitter. That's TNKGRL. Drop the vowels. Comic book character Tankgirl, same thing. And that's also my Instagram handle. So if you want cool photos, go check it out. And then finally, my podcast is Mobile Tech Podcast. That's mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, TuneIn Radio, pretty much everywhere. And I say we, the royal we. I'm the person basically doing it. So check it out. And there's a YouTube channel that goes with the podcast where I do a bit of video content to kind of match, and I'll be publishing this video on it, to kind of match the content on the podcast. And it's basically my name on YouTube. So youtube.com/Myriam Joire. If you don't know how to spell that, I'm sure there'll be a bottom 1/3. But even if there isn't, just go to my Twitter and look for my name. So Tankgirl without the vowels, my name, add that to the youtube.com URL and you get to my channel. So like the channel, subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends, all that good stuff. And if you're watching this completely randomly and you don't really know anything about what I do as a journalist, I'm also a consultant. I have a company that helps startups in the hardware space and consumer hardware space launch products, go to market with their products. So hit me up again. Twitter is probably the best way, and we'll go from there.
And then you can find me at Geekazine, Think Magazine Put in a Geek. My name is Jeffrey Powers. Once again, I also have a YouTube, youtube.com/Geekazine. Actually, if you do a Google search, just put Geekazine, you'll find me no matter what it is. So, and yeah, definitely like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell notification for those videos so you know when the next ones are going to come out. And let us know what you thought about this video, what you thought about South by Southwest, what you might have liked, what you might have not liked if you were here, what you got to see, and contact with us because we might just get online and do a couple post South by Southwest if we've got more content out of it.
And we will link to each other's various social things down in the descriptions below. So just look for that.
So let's see. I'll be see no evil. You'll be
hear no evil.
Speak no evil. There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
That's our photo for the.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone. Take care.
Geek out.